Hey guys, tonight we begin with a journey not to a land of chivalry or pharaohs, but to a world just a few generations removed from your own. A world often romanticized with images of grand steam engines and bustling innovation. Forget the polished brass and the heroic engineers for a moment, because tonight you're stepping into the relentless grime and raw struggle of the Industrial Revolution. It wasn't about shiny new inventions for most. It was about survival, grit, and the grinding gears of a new reality. Before we plunge into the soot-choked streets and deafening factories, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and tell me where and when you're listening from. Alright, find that cozy spot, pull your blanket up tight, and let the hum of your modern world fade into the rumble of distant machinery, as we discover why life back then was just smoke and routine. Imagine, if you will, the world before. Not so long ago, perhaps your great-great-grandparents' time, a different rhythm pulsed through existence. You lived by the sun, by the seasons, by the slow, deliberate pace of the land. Your days were spent in the fields, your hands calloused from the plough, your face weathered by sun and wind. The air, though often damp and cold, tasted of soil and wood smoke, not the acrid temps of coal dust. The loudest sounds you knew were the bleating of sheep, the lowing of cattle, the rustle of leaves, or the distant clang of a blacksmith in the village forge. Your small cottage, perhaps shared with livestock, was lit by flickering candlelight or the glowing embers of a hearth. Food came from your own labor, from a neighbor's generous hand, or from the wild. There was hardship, certainly. Hunger and disease were constant companions, but it was a hardship dictated by nature, by the harvest, by the whims of weather. Life was local, defined by the boundaries of your village, the familiar faces of kin and community. Your knowledge was practical, passed down through generations. How to mend a roof, how to cure a cut, how to tell if the crop would fail. You knew the names of every star, every wild herb, every local gossip. Then, imperceptibly at first, a shift began. Whispers of machines that could spin cotton faster than 100 hands, looms that wove cloth with tireless speed. Factories, vast and dark, began to rise on the landscape, like monstrous brick fungi pushing through the ancient earth. The promise: work, wages, a way out of the back-breaking, often fruitless, toil of the land. So, you pack your few meager possessions, your family trailing behind you, your heart a strange mixture of hope and apprehension. You leave behind the quiet familiarity of the countryside, the smell of damp earth and wood smoke, the sounds of nature, for the distant, beckoning glow of the industrial town. The air grows heavier with each mile, the sky above becoming a perpetual twilight stained with a strange, reddish-brown hue. The sounds shift, too, from the gentle symphony of the natural world to a growing, rumbling cacophony. You hear the rhythmic thump of unseen engines, the hiss of steam, the clatter of countless wooden and metal parts. It's an alien world, a machine world, and you, with your calloused hands and your simple rural knowledge, are about to be swallowed whole. You arrive, perhaps under a sky choked with smoke, to a landscape utterly transformed. This isn't just a bigger village, it's a new planet. The buildings are taller, darker, uniform, like rows of hungry teeth. The streets are narrow, cobbled, slick with grime, teeming with a press of humanity you've never witnessed before. The air is thick, gritty, it coats your tongue and catches in your throat. And everywhere, there is the smell, a potent, inescapable cocktail of coal smoke, unwashed bodies, stagnant water, human waste, and the metallic temps of industry. This you realize, with a sinking dread, is your new home. This is the brave new world you've entered. There's no turning back. Your old life, the life of your ancestors, is gone, replaced by the relentless, all-consuming maw of the factory. You are no longer a farmer, a weaver, a cooper. You are merely a cog, waiting to be fitted into the great machine. Segment 2. The iron grip of the clock. Remember the rhythm of your life in the fields. The rising sun signaling the start of your day, the setting sun, its gentle orange glow, marking your return to the cottage. Your labor was hard, but it was yours. You paused for a drink, for a moment to watch a bird, for a shared laugh with a neighbor. The seasons dictated your work, planting, tending, harvesting, then the quieter, colder months for repairs and indoor tasks. Your body, though tired, moved to an internal, natural beat. Now, all that is utterly, brutally gone. You wake not to the rising sun, but to the shriek of the factory whistle, a piercing, metallic scream that tears through the pre-dawn darkness, dragging you from your meager sleep. It's 5 a.m., or 4 a.m., or even earlier, depending on the particular misery of your shift. You stumble from your bed, a straw mattress on the floor perhaps, shared with several family members, your muscles already aching from yesterday's grind. There's no time for proper breakfast, just a scrap of bread, perhaps a weak tea gulped down in the dim light. You pull on your worn, oil-stained clothes, often damp from the persistent chill of your tenement room. The rush to the factory is a daily pilgrimage, a sea of shuffling, silent figures moving through the greasy pre-dawn streets. The air is already thick with the morning's first exhalations of coal smoke, clinging to your lungs. You arrive breathless and shivering, just as the second whistle blows, a final, urgent blast that signals the gates are about to slam shut. To be late is to be docked pay, or worse, to be turned away for the day, or even dismissed. Inside, the world is a symphony of industrial hell. The iron grip of the clock is absolute. You are no longer an individual with your own needs or pace. You are an extension of the machine. The machines themselves set the tempo, the ceaseless clatter of the looms, the deafening roar of the engines, the rhythmic clang of the presses. Your body must match their pace, hour after hour after hour. 12-hour shifts are common, 14, even 16. Sometimes, if there's a rush order, you might work a full day and then another, sleeping for a few precious hours on the factory floor itself, amidst the grime and the noise. Your breaks are short, timed precisely. A half hour for a midday meal, if you're lucky. You wolf down your meager food, a bit of stew, some bread, perhaps a cold potato, standing or perched on a crate, the incessant noise still battering your ears. Conversation is difficult, often impossible, over the din. The factory clock, large and unfeeling, dominates your vision, a constant, mocking reminder of the hours yet to be endured. Each tick is a minute stolen, each minute an eternity. Your eyes burn from the strain, your lungs ache from the dust and fibers, your muscles scream in protest. You learn to perform your task with a mindless, repetitive efficiency, your movements becoming automatic. Stripped of thought or pleasure, you are a human automaton, serving the mechanical one. The bell finally signals the end of your shift. Another piercing shriek, but this time it's a sound of release, not summons. You emerge from the factory gates, blinking in the twilight, or sometimes, still full daylight if your shift started incredibly early. The exhaustion is bone deep. a profound fatigue that seeps into every fiber of your being. You're too tired to eat much, too tired to talk, too tired for anything but the slow, painful shuffle back to your dark, cramped room. The next morning, the whistle will shriek again, and the relentless cycle will begin anew. This is your life now, controlled by the clock, enslaved by the machine, with every natural rhythm of your existence crushed beneath the iron grip of industrial time. There is no pause, no escape, just the steady, inexorable march of the working day, a perpetual routine of smoke and toil. Step with me now, not into a history book, but onto the very floor of a textile mill in Manchester, or a coal mine in Durham, or an iron foundry in the Black Country, circa 1840. Forget the images of clean, well-lit spaces you know today. This is a sensory assault, an immediate, overwhelming experience that would stun your modern sensibilities into silent terror. As you push through the heavy wooden doors, the first thing that hits you is the sound. It's not just loud, it's a wall of noise, a physical force that vibrates through your bones. The clatter and bang of power looms, the rhythmic thudding of steam engines, the metallic screech of gears, the whir of countless belts and pulleys, the hiss and gush of steam all combine into a deafening, ceaseless roar. You have to shout to be heard, and even then, your words are swallowed, lost in the industrial din. After a few hours, your ears ring, a phantom echo of the constant assault. After days, weeks, months, the ringing becomes permanent. A dull roar in your head that never truly fades, leaving you partially, then profoundly, deaf. Now, the air. It's not just smoky from coal. It's thick, heavy, palpable. In a cotton mill, fine lint and dust particles float everywhere, clinging to your clothes, settling on your skin, and, most insidiously, filling your lungs with every breath. You cough, a dry, rasping hack that quickly becomes chronic. Your throat is perpetually sore, your eyes gritty and red from the irritation. In an iron foundry, the air is acrid with the fumes of molten metal, choking and metallic. Down in a coal mine, it's a suffocating blend of coal dust, stale air, and the ever-present danger of explosive gases. The smell is a potent brew: sweat, stale oil, hot metal, burning coal, unwashed bodies, and the distinct, cloying sweetness of rot from poor sanitation. It clings to your clothes, to your skin, to your hair, a permanent mark of your occupation that no amount of scrubbing can fully remove. Visually, the scene is a blur of motion and shadow. Machines, enormous and menacing, dominate every inch of space, their bare gears and turning shafts a constant, silent threat. There are no safety guards, no brightly colored warning signs, just raw, powerful, indifferent machinery. The lighting, if any, comes from gas jets, dim and flickering, or from a few grimy windows that are often covered in soot. Shadows dance and writhe, making it hard to see, increasing the danger. You see a sea of faces, pale and drawn, smudged with grease and grime, eyes wide with a mixture of exhaustion and a sort of vacant resignation. You see children, tiny figures darting under and around the machines, their small hands essential for reaching into tight spaces, their bodies vulnerable to the crushing power of the unforgiving gears. The heat, too, is relentless, particularly in summer or near the furnaces, radiating from the machines, from the bodies, from the very walls. You sweat constantly, your clothes damp, your body craving a breath of cool, clean air that never comes. The floors are often slick with oil, water, or industrial waste. making every step treacherous. And the danger, it's not an abstract concept. It's a living, breathing entity that stalks every worker. A moment's inattention, a slip of the hand, a loose piece of clothing, and you could lose a finger, a limb, or your life. The machines don't care. They just keep turning, grinding, devouring. You witness accidents frequently. A child's hand caught in the loom, a worker crushed by a falling bale of cotton, another losing an eye to a flying shard of metal. The screams are brief, quickly swallowed by the general cacophony, and the injured are simply replaced. There are always more desperate souls waiting at the factory gates. This is your daily reality, your workspace, your prison. A symphony of screams, both literal and metaphorical, echoing through the industrial gloom, a relentless, dehumanizing environment that drains your body, damages your health, and slowly, irrevocably, steals your spirit. And you must endure it, because the alternative is starvation, now. Let's step outside the factory, if only for a moment, and try to draw a breath. As you do, you'll find that the air doesn't offer respite. It offers a different kind of assault. Your modern lungs, accustomed to regulations and relatively clean urban air, would immediately protest. Here, in the heart of an industrial town, the very atmosphere is a thick, tangible entity, a perpetual shroud of pollution that never lifts. Look up, if you can pierce the gloom, and you won't see blue sky. You'll see a sky that is often an eerie, sickly orange, or a bruised, perpetual grey. It's as if the sun itself has given up trying to penetrate the oppressive blanket of smoke and smog that hangs like a malevolent spirit over the entire landscape. The source of this misery is everywhere. Thousands of factory chimneys, towering brick stacks, endlessly belch out plumes of black, greasy smoke, laden with coal dust, sulfur, and a cocktail of other industrial effluvia. Every home, too, burns coal for heat and cooking, adding its own smaller but significant contribution to the airborne particulate matter. The combined effect is suffocating. You can feel the air, literally. It has a weight, a texture. It coats your tongue with a metallic, bitter taste and a gritty sensation. Every breath draws microscopic particles deep into your lungs. You wake each morning with a cough, a persistent hack that rattles your chest, and a film of soot in your nostrils and throat. Your clothes, no matter how recently washed, quickly become smudged and dull. Your skin feels perpetually grimy, your hair stiff with the settled dust. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a killer. The English malady, as it was sometimes called, or simply consumption, was rampant. Bronchitis, asthma, pneumonia, tuberculosis, these diseases flourished in the choked air, weakening the population, particularly the young and the old. Imagine your child, barely old enough to walk, struggling to breathe in air you can almost chew. Picture the pale, emaciated faces of those suffering, their chests racked with incessant coughing, their bodies slowly wasting away, not from lack of food alone, but from the poisoned air they are forced to inhale day in and day out. The life expectancy in these towns plummeted. A healthy young man or woman from the countryside, strong and robust, might move to the city for work and find their vigor slowly but surely drained by the relentless assault on their respiratory system. A lifespan that might have stretched into the 60s or 70s in a rural setting could be cut short by decades. Here, and the pollution doesn't just hang in the air, it settles. Every surface is coated in a fine, black film. The cobbled streets are perpetually damp and greasy, not just from human and animal waste, but from the condensed particles of smoke. The rain, when it falls, isn't cleansing. It's a dirty, acidic drizzle that washes soot from the sky onto everything, creating murky rivulets that run into the stagnant gutters. Even the rivers, once clear and vibrant with life, become open sewers, black with industrial dyes, chemical waste, and human effluent. The stench is overpowering in places, a nauseating blend of putrefaction and chemicals. So, as you stand in the smoky, grimy streets of an industrial city, trying to catch your breath, remember that this isn't just a backdrop. It's an active, insidious force, slowly, quietly, but effectively killing you. The chimney's breath is a slow poison, and you are trapped within its lethal embrace, with no escape save perhaps the grave. Now, let's talk about the smallest hands in the factories, the children. In your world, childhood is a sacred, protected time filled with play, education, and the gentle guidance of adults. In the Industrial Revolution, for the vast majority of working-class families, such a concept was a cruel luxury, a dream utterly out of reach. From an age that would shock you, children were considered assets, tiny economic units, their labor essential for the survival of the family. Forget playgrounds and schoolbooks. For these children, life began in the shadow of the factory wall, or deep beneath the earth. Imagine yourself as a child, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, maybe even younger, barely past toddlerhood. You're pulled from your straw mattress before dawn, just like your parents, your small body still heavy with sleep. You shiver in the cold, damp morning air, walking with the shuffling, silent parade of adults and other children towards the factory. Once inside, your work isn't child's play. It's grim, dangerous, and utterly relentless. In the textile mills, you might be a pizza, responsible for crawling under the worry, clattering machinery to retrieve stray cotton or to retie broken threads. The noise is deafening, the air thick with lint, and the danger constant. A single slip, a moment of inattention, and your small hand or arm could be caught, crushed, or severed by the unforgiving gears. You see other children, mangled, crying, their faces contorted in pain, carried out of the factory gates, their working lives over, their bodies permanently scarred. You learn to move with an almost preternatural caution, your small frame a terrible advantage in navigating the cramped, dangerous spaces, or perhaps you're a scavenger, running barefoot beneath the spinning machines, collecting scraps of cotton that fall to the floor. Often while the machinery is still running, the heat from the machinery is stifling, the dust clogs your lungs, and the terror of being caught in the moving parts is a constant companion. Your job is vital to keep the machines running smoothly, but it is also one of the most perilous. There are no kind words, no encouragement. If you falter, if you make a mistake, you're met with the overseer's sharp cuff, a kick, or the sting of a leather strap. There's no pity for childish errors here, only the relentless demand of the machine for uninterrupted production. Your working day stretches for 12, 14, even 16 hours, mirroring the adults. Your tiny body aches, your eyes burn with exhaustion. Your spirit is slowly crushed under the weight of the endless, monotonous toil. Sleep, when it comes, is a desperate escape from the pain and noise. In the coal mines, the picture is even grimmer. As a trapper, boy or girl, you sit alone in the darkness, often for 12 hours at a stretch, opening and closing ventilation doors as the coal wagons approach. The silence, punctuated only by the scurry of rats and the distant rumble of carts, is profound and terrifying. You are entombed in the earth, your only companion, your own fears. Or you might be a hurrier or thruster, pushing heavy coal wagons through narrow, low tunnels, your back bent double, your body strained to breaking point. The air is foul, the darkness absolute, save for the tiny flame of your lamp. Your young limbs are constantly bruised, cut, and scraped. Your growth is often stunted, your spine warped by the unnatural positions you are forced to adopt. Education is non-existent. Play is a forgotten word. Your childhood is not a time of innocence and growth, but a harsh apprenticeship in suffering, a brutal initiation into the smoke and routine that will define the rest of your short, hard life. You are a child, but you carry the burdens of an adult, chained to the relentless demands of a system that sees you not as a human being, but as cheap, expendable labor. You live in a single room, perhaps two, with your entire family, parents, siblings, sometimes even extended relatives. This one room serves as kitchen, living area, and bedroom for 6, 8, or even 10 people. There is no privacy. The air within is stale, heavy with the smell of unwashed bodies, stale food, and dampness. The walls often weep with condensation, and the chill from the stone or brick seeps into your bones, particularly during the harsh winters. Furniture is sparse, a rough table, a few stools, and mattresses stuffed with straw or rags on the floor. Beds are precious and often shared, meaning you might sleep in shifts with other family members. Vermin are constant, unwelcome inhabitants. Rats scurry in the shadows, particularly at night, drawn by the scraps of food and the general filth. Fleas and lice are an inescapable part of life, causing constant itching and discomfort. Disease spreads like wildfire through these cramped, unsanitary conditions. Now, let's talk about sanitation, or the shocking lack thereof. Forget running water, indoor toilets, or even proper washing facilities. A single privy, a communal outhouse, might be shared by dozens of families, sometimes hundreds, in a back alley or courtyard. These privies are often little more than cesspits, overflowing with human waste, attracting flies and spreading disease. The stench in the summer is unimaginable, a pervasive, stomach-churning odor that hangs over the entire neighborhood. Clean drinking water is a constant struggle. You might draw water from a communal pump, often located near the overflowing privies, making it susceptible to contamination. The water itself is frequently drawn from rivers that are open sewers, teeming with cholera, typhoid, and other deadly bacteria. Imagine boiling every drop of water just to be safe, a task that consumes precious time and fuel. Even then, the risk remains high. There is no escape from the noise, either. The sounds of your neighbors, their arguments, their children crying, their late-night coughs are constantly audible through the thin walls. The general hubbub of the street below, the shouts of vendors, the endless shuffle of feet, the occasional drunken brawl, it all invades your precious small space. Your tenement room is not a place of quiet rest, but another arena of struggle, where the fight against filth, disease, and overcrowding is ceaseless. It is a place that drains you further, rather than replenishes you. You pay exorbitant rents for this squalor, a significant portion of your meager wages, simply for the privilege of a roof over your head. The landlord, often an absentee owner, cares little for your living conditions, only for the rent money. You are trapped, held captive not just by your work, but by the very walls that are supposed to protect you. The tenement is a physical manifestation of your place in this new industrial order. small, insignificant, and perpetually struggling for air and dignity, having worked an exhausting shift in the factory, breathed the poisoned air, and retreated to your cramped tenement. Your body, understandably, cries out for nourishment. But for you, the industrial worker, sustenance is not a delightful culinary experience. It's a grim necessity, a relentless struggle to gather enough calories to fuel another day of punishing labor. Forget the varied, often fresh, produce you find in modern supermarkets. Your diet is a monotonous, barely adequate collection of the cheapest, most readily available foodstuffs, designed for sheer caloric intake rather than nutritional value. Your daily bread, quite literally, is often just that, bread. A coarse, dark loaf, sometimes made with inferior grains, bought from the baker or baked at home if you're lucky enough to have a small oven. This forms the backbone of almost every meal. It's cheap, filling, and provides some energy, but little else. Imagine trying to power your body through 14 hours of physical labor on just this. Meat is a rare luxury, reserved for special occasions or Sunday dinners, and even then, it's often the cheapest cuts, full of gristle and fat. For most days, your protein comes from a slice of bacon, perhaps some cured fish, or if you can afford it, a scrap of cheese. Vegetables are scarce, especially in the cold, damp months, and often limited to potatoes, onions, or cabbages. Fresh fruit is almost unheard of for the working class, a distant memory from the countryside, or an exotic item seen only by the wealthy. Your main meal of the day, if you can call it that, is often a simple stew or broth. This might contain whatever meager scraps of meat, bones, or vegetables you could afford, stretched out with water and thickened with oatmeal or barley. It's thin, watery, and lacks any real depth of flavor or nutritional punch. Imagine eating this, day after day, your body screaming for vitamins, for fats, for varied nutrients. The lack of proper nutrition manifests in myriad ways: pale skin, listlessness, stunted growth in children, and a pervasive weakness that makes you even more susceptible to the diseases rampant in your environment. Rickets, scurvy, and other deficiency diseases are common, leaving permanent marks on your body and health. You drink weak tea, sweetened if you can afford a lump of sugar, or perhaps a thin, watered-down beer, small beer that serves more as a safer alternative to contaminated water than as a beverage of enjoyment. The water itself, as we discussed, is often a source of illness. Food preparation is also primitive. Cooking facilities in your tenement are minimal, perhaps a small, shared fireplace or a simple brazier. Your mother or your wife spends precious, exhausting hours carefully tending to what little food is available, trying to make it stretch, trying to make it palatable. Every penny, every crumb is accounted for. There is no waste. Children often suffer the most from this inadequate diet. Their growing bodies are starved of essential nutrients, leading to lifelong health problems, compromised immune systems, and chronic fatigue that makes their long hours in the factory even more brutal. The act of eating itself is often rushed, done in silence, in a hurry to get back to the machines, or in utter exhaustion after a shift. There is no joy in the meal, no communal pleasure that your modern world takes for granted. It is simply fuel, a desperate attempt to keep the engine of your body running for another day. And even this meager sustenance is hard-won, earned with the sweat of your brow and the ache in your bones. The daily bread of toil is heavy, both literally and figuratively, a constant reminder of your precarious existence on the knife edge of hunger and exhaustion. You are now immersed in the rhythm of the factory, your body moving in tandem with the machines, your mind dulled by the repetitive toil. But even amidst the deafening clatter and the suffocating air, you are acutely aware of another presence, the overseer. This figure, often a man of intimidating stature and stern demeanor, is the factory owner's direct representative on the floor, the enforcer of discipline, the very embodiment of the factory's iron will. His shadow falls not just on the machines, but on every single worker, a constant reminder of your subordinate position and the ever-present threat of punishment. Forget the concept of workers' rights, HR departments, or protective labor laws. In this era, the factory owner was king, and his word was law. The overseer was his executioner. Discipline was harsh, arbitrary, and designed to extract every last ounce of productivity from your exhausted body. Rules were numerous, often posted on grim, faded placards, listing a litany of infractions that could result in fines, beatings, or dismissal. To speak without permission, to sing, to sit down even if your task could be done sitting, to arrive even a minute late, to leave your post without explicit permission, all were punishable offenses. Imagine needing to relieve yourself and having to beg permission from a glowering man, knowing that a refusal could mean agonizing discomfort, or going anyway and risking a beating. Fines were a common form of punishment, a cruel double blow to your already meager wages. If you damaged machinery, however accidentally, or produced faulty goods, or simply made a mistake born of sheer exhaustion, a portion of your pay was deducted. These fines were often disproportionate to the crime, designed to keep you perpetually in debt, perpetually struggling, and therefore perpetually dependent on the factory for your survival. You might work a full week, only to find a significant chunk of your earnings withheld for some perceived infraction, leaving you with even less to feed your family. The threat of dismissal was the ultimate weapon. In a world with an endless supply of desperate labor, losing your job meant destitution, hunger, and perhaps even death for you and your family. The overseer knew this, and he wielded this power like a cudgel. Physical punishment was also common, particularly for children, but not exclusively. A harsh slap, a kick, a blow with a cane or strap. These were not uncommon reactions to perceived idleness or insubordination. Imagine working alongside your own child, watching them receive such treatment, powerless to intervene for fear of losing your own job. The humiliation and the impotence gnaw at your soul. The overseer's presence is not just about enforcing rules. It's about control, about breaking your spirit, about turning you into a compliant, unquestioning extension of the machine. He moves through the aisles, his eyes scanning, his voice sharp, his very posture radiating menace. You learn to anticipate his movements, to keep your head down, to appear busy even when your body screams for rest. You become adept at hiding your exhaustion, your pain, your silent defiance. This constant surveillance, this omnipresent threat of punishment, creates an atmosphere of fear and subservience. There is no camaraderie in your suffering, no solidarity, for to speak out, to commiserate too openly, is to invite the overseer's attention and his wrath. You are isolated in your misery, constantly aware that your every move is scrutinized, your every breath a potential source of trouble. The shadow of the overseer is long. It stretches across the factory floor and into your dreams, ensuring that even in your moments of supposed rest, the harsh realities of your industrial servitude are never truly forgotten. Now, let's consider the lives of women in this swirling vortex of smoke and routine. Your modern world has seen incredible strides towards gender equality, with women participating in every sphere of life, often with support systems and choices. But in the Industrial Revolution, for working-class women, life was a crushing double burden, a relentless cycle of factory toil followed by domestic drudgery, with precious little relief or recognition. Forget the delicate, demure images of Victorian ladies in drawing rooms. These women were the backbone of the industrial economy and the glue that held families together, all while enduring hardships that would stagger your imagination as a young woman. You likely entered the factory or the mill at an early age, perhaps even younger than your male counterparts, sometimes as young as 5 or 6. Your small, nimble fingers were particularly suited for intricate tasks in textile mills, piecing broken threads, operating spinning jennies, or tending to power looms. The work was no less dangerous, no less exhausting, and often paid significantly less than men's wages for the same output. You stood for hours on end, surrounded by the deafening machinery, breathing the lint-filled air, your body aching from the repetitive movements. Sexual harassment and exploitation from male supervisors were unfortunately common, yet rarely reported due to the fear of losing your job, your only means of survival. But unlike your male peers, your workday didn't end when the factory whistle shrieked its evening release. As a woman, you carried the additional, relentless burden of household management. Imagine returning to your cramped, often damp tenement room, bone-weary from a 12 or 14-hour shift, only to face a second shift of labor. There was dinner to prepare, often a meager stew, boiled over a tiny, shared fire, laundry to be done, which meant hauling water from a communal pump, scrubbing clothes by hand in cold, soapy water, and drying them in the perpetually damp, smoky air. There were children to tend to, often hungry, sick, or restless after a day left unsupervised or in the care of an older sibling. There was the constant struggle against the grime and filth that infiltrated every corner of your small living space. Childbirth was another immense challenge, a terrifying ordeal often endured with little to no medical assistance, in unsanitary conditions and with a high risk of death for both mother and child. And even after birth, there was little respite. You might return to the factory within days or weeks, your body still weak, your baby perhaps left in the care of an older child or a neighbor, or even brought into the factory itself, hidden under a loom or left in a corner, often drugged with mother's ruined gin or laudanum to keep them quiet while you worked. Infant mortality rates were shockingly high, a brutal reality that left women perpetually grieving. The emotional toll was immense. You were expected to be strong, stoic, and endlessly resilient. To complain was weakness. To break down was a luxury you could not afford. You were the anchor of the family, the one who ensured food was on the table, clothes were mended, and children were cared for, all while battling your own profound exhaustion and the pervasive despair of your circumstances. Your identity was often subsumed by your roles: factory worker, wife, mother, leaving little room for personal aspirations or individual expression. Your life was a continuous loop of physical labor, domestic chores, and a constant worry of illness or unemployment. There was no leisure as you understand it, no self-care. Every moment was dedicated to survival, to simply keeping the family afloat in the churning, dangerous waters of industrial life. The double burden you carried was a testament to your immense strength and resilience, but also a stark illustration of the brutal, dehumanizing demands placed upon women in the unforgiving landscape of the Industrial Revolution, with such crushing realities defining your every waking moment. The human spirit, however resilient, inevitably seeks escape, some small pocket of respite from the relentless misery. For many, particularly men, but increasingly women as well, that escape was found in the hazy, raucous confines of the alehouse or gin palace. Forget your modern concepts of a cozy pub or a sophisticated bar. These were often dimly lit, crowded, and boisterous establishments, offering a fleeting, often dangerous, solace from the grim realities of industrial life. Imagine you've just finished a 14-hour shift. Your body aches, your ears still ring with the factory's din, your lungs burn with coal dust. Your tenement room offers little comfort, no warmth, no peace, just more grime and the demanding cries of hungry children. The alehouse, by contrast, offers immediate, if temporary, relief. The warmth of the fire, the flickering gaslight cutting through the perpetual gloom, the rough camaraderie of fellow workers sharing their woes. It's a powerful draw. You step inside, and the smell of stale beer, pipe smoke, and unwashed bodies hits you, but it's a familiar, almost comforting scent, a symbol of brief freedom. The main attraction, of course, is the drink. Cheap ale, often watered down but still potent enough, or more dangerously, gin. Gin was particularly prevalent, dubbed Mother's Ruin for its devastating effects on families and its low cost, making it accessible even to the most impoverished. It offered a rapid, numbing oblivion, a temporary escape from the pain, the hunger, the despair. For a few precious hours, the throb in your head subsides, the ache in your muscles lessens, and the crushing weight of your existence lifts. You can forget the overseer's glare, the demanding machines, the sickness of your children, the perpetual struggle for food. You can laugh, tell stories, curse your fate, or simply sit in a stupor, letting the alcohol wash over you. But this respite comes at a heavy cost. The wages you earn with such brutal effort, already pitifully small, are quickly squandered. Imagine drinking away a significant portion of your weekly earnings, knowing your family is waiting at home, hungry. The morning after brings not just a hangover, but a crushing guilt, a deeper despair, and the renewed pressure of a depleted purse. This cycle of toil and escape often leads to chronic alcoholism, which further exacerbates poverty, leads to domestic violence, and breaks down family structures. You see men stumbling home late, their wages gone, their tempers short, perpetuating the cycle of misery on their wives and children. Children, too, sometimes succumb to the lure. Sent by their parents to fetch ale, they might take a sip or more, beginning a dangerous habit early beyond the drink. The alehouse could also be a place of raw social connection, a space where information was exchanged, where grievances were aired, where a fragile sense of community could form amongst shared suffering. Whispers of strikes, discussions of working conditions, the seeds of collective action. Sometimes these ideas were born in the smoky haze of the alehouse, but for most, it was primarily a place to drown sorrows, a desperate attempt to find warmth and forgetfulness in a world that offered so little of either. The alehouse provided a fragile, fleeting illusion of freedom, a temporary numbing of the pain, only to return you to the harsh realities of your life with an even heavier burden to bear. It was a testament to the sheer desperation of the age, that so many sought solace in such a destructive yet understandable way. Now, as we near the end of our journey, let's acknowledge that even in the darkest corners of the Industrial Revolution, amidst the smoke and the routine, the human spirit, resilient as it is, began to stir. You, the industrial worker, oppressed and exploited, didn't simply accept your fate in passive resignation. Beneath the surface of monotonous toil, whispers of change began to circulate. The first tentative stirrings of resistance, and the eventual, long march towards reform. Imagine the frustration, the raw anger that simmered beneath the surface of your exhaustion. Day after day, you endure the dangers of the factory, the endless hours, the meager pay, the squalor of your home. You see your children suffer, your friends die young, and the wealthy factory owners grow richer by the hour. Surely, this cannot be the only way. Initially, your resistance might be individual, a deliberately slow pace when the overseer isn't looking, a stolen moment of rest, a small act of sabotage. But soon, you begin to realize that individual acts are futile. True change requires collective action. The first attempts at organizing were fraught with danger. Any effort to form a combination, a union, was illegal, met with brutal suppression by employers and the state. You could be jailed, transported, or even executed for daring to demand better conditions. Yet, despite these terrifying risks, secret societies and informal groups began to form. Imagine gathering in the dead of night, in a hidden back room or a secluded corner of an alehouse, speaking in hushed tones about your shared grievances. You talk about the unbearable hours, the dangerous machines, the starvation wages. You speak of the need for a living wage, for safer factories, for education for your children. These were not radical demands, but basic human rights, denied to you by the system. Strikes, when they occurred, were desperate, often violent affairs. To strike meant to forego your already meager wages, to risk starvation for your family. It meant facing down armed militia or the local constabulary, who were always on the side of the factory owners. You witness your fellow workers being beaten, arrested, and sometimes killed for simply daring to stop work and demand a better life. Yet, you persist. Over time, these small, fragmented acts of resistance, these brave, dangerous strikes, begin to build a cumulative pressure. The sheer scale of the suffering, the growing awareness among some enlightened individuals outside the working class, begins to chip away at the walls of indifference. Reformers, often from the middle or even upper classes, begin to document the horrific conditions you endure. Journalists write exposes, philanthropists lobby parliament. Slowly, painstakingly, the first factory acts are passed, often inadequate at first, but a start. They aim to limit child labor, to reduce working hours for women and children, to improve basic safety. Imagine the mixed feelings: relief that something is changing, but frustration that it's so little, so slow, and often unenforced. You still face immense hardship, but the very fact that the system is bending, however slightly, offers a glimmer of hope. The fight for the 10-hour day, for the right to form unions, for universal education, these long, arduous battles begin here, in the smoke-filled towns, fueled by your courage and your unwavering belief that a better life is possible. The whispers of change are faint, but they grow louder with each passing year, laying the groundwork for the labor movements and social reforms that would eventually transform the brutal landscape of industrial life. Thanks to the grit and sacrifice of people just like you, as our journey through the grimy heart of the Industrial Revolution draws to a close, let's step back and consider the profound, often uncomfortable, legacy left by those decades of smoke and routine. Your modern world, the one you inhabit tonight, with its comforts, its conveniences, its protections, is built on the very foundations laid by the suffering and resilience of the people we've just spent time with. Forget the romanticized images for a moment, and feel the weight of their sacrifice in the very fabric of your present. The factories, the mines, the mills, those infernos of human toil and mechanical might, were the engine rooms of your modern world. They churned out the textiles that clothed nations, the iron and steel that built railways and bridges, the coal that fueled the burgeoning cities. They created unprecedented wealth, which, while unevenly distributed at the time, eventually flowed through the veins of society, transforming economies and leading to global empires. The very concept of mass production, of standardized goods, of a consumer society, began here in the repetitive, often soul-destroying work you experienced. Without the sheer, relentless labor of millions like you, the technological advancements that define your world simply would not exist. But this legacy comes with a stark, brutal cost. The air you breathe today, though still imperfect, is demonstrably cleaner than the perpetual smog of Manchester. The water you drink, for the most part, is safe and readily available. Your children go to school, not to the factory floor. Your working hours are regulated, your safety protected by law, your wages hopefully sufficient to live on with dignity. These improvements, these basic human rights that you take for granted, were not handed down by benevolent rulers. They were fought for, bled for, and died for by the very people whose lives we've explored tonight. Every factory act, every health regulation, every minimum wage, every weekend, every pension, each piece of your social safety net is an echo of the desperate pleas and courageous struggles that began in those dark, brutal years. The Industrial Revolution fundamentally reshaped not just the physical landscape, but the human one. It uprooted millions from rural lives and concentrated them into urban centers, creating new communities, new forms of social interaction, and new challenges. It gave birth to new social classes, the industrial working class, and the new industrial capitalists, and redefined the relationship between labor and capital, a dynamic that continues to play out in different forms today. The very idea of progress, of constant innovation and technological advancement as a driving force of society, was born in this era. Yet, it was a progress built on the backs of the exploited, a testament to humanity's capacity for both ingenuity and cruelty. So, as you lie in your comfortable bed, surrounded by the warmth and quiet of your home, remember the grinding noise, the choking smoke, the relentless routine. Remember the pale faces of the children, the weary eyes of the mothers, the calloused hands of the fathers. Their grit, their enduring spirit in the face of unimaginable hardship, built the bridge from their world to yours. Their suffering paved the way for your comforts. The echoes of the engine room still resonate, a powerful reminder of the human cost of progress, and a testament to the enduring human spirit that, even amidst the most brutal conditions, refused to be utterly extinguished. The smoke may have cleared, and the routine may have changed, but the lessons of their struggle remain vital and profound for anyone willing to listen.